Before the sun fully rose, the Sea of Galilee stirred under the fading night. The water moved restlessly against the sides of small fishing boats, and the men aboard them were exhausted. Simon Peter pulled his net from the water with aching arms and torn hands, only to find it empty once again. Nearby, James and John worked without speaking. The night had been long, and with every failed cast, hope had slowly slipped away. Fishing was not just their work, it was their life. It fed their families and gave meaning to their days. But that night, the sea had given them nothing. As the first light of morning spread across the hills, the fishermen gave up. They dragged their boats onto the shore, rinsed their nets in silence, and began folding them, already feeling the weight of the loss the day would bring. As they prepared to leave, voices began to rise behind them. A crowd was gathering along the shore, drawn by a man whose presence carried quiet authority. It was Jesus of Nazareth. People pressed in close, eager to hear him speak, until there was hardly any room left along the water's edge. Seeing the crowd, Jesus stepped into Simon's boat and asked him to push out a little from the shore. Simon hesitated. His body was tired and his mind worn, but something in the man's voice moved him. Without argument, he pushed the boat back into the water. Jesus sat down and began to teach, his voice calm and steady, carrying clearly across the sea. Simon listened while holding the boat in place, not fully understanding the words, yet sensing their weight. Even the water seemed to grow still. When Jesus finished speaking, he turned to Simon and said, "Take the boat out into deeper water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon looked at him, disbelief flickering across his face. He had fished all night. He knew these waters. Daytime fishing made no sense. Still, he answered honestly, "Master, we worked all night and caught nothing." Then, after a pause, he added, "But because you say so, I will let down the nets." The boat moved into deeper water. The nets sank beneath the surface, disappearing into the depths. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the ropes pulled tight. The boat lurched as fish flooded the nets, more than Simon had ever seen. The weight burned his hands as he shouted for help. James and John rushed over, their faces filled with shock. The nets began to tear. Both boats filled rapidly as fish thrashed and water spilled over the sides. The men worked desperately, pulling and shouting, until at last they reached the shore. The boats sat low in the water, overflowing with fish. The miracle lay before them, undeniable. Simon fell to his knees in the boat. His voice trembled as he said, "Lord, leave me, I am a sinful man." What he felt was more than fear, it was awe. He knew this power did not come from skill or chance. James and John stood silent, overwhelmed by what they had witnessed. Jesus looked at Simon with compassion and said, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will catch people." Those words reached deeper than the miracle itself. The boats, the fish, the years of labor, all of it faded in that moment. Something greater was being offered. They pulled their boats fully onto the shore. The catch remained, valuable beyond measure, yet untouched. One by one they stepped away from it. Simon, James, John. They left behind what they had always known and followed Jesus instead. They did not know where the path would lead. They only knew they could not return to the life they had lived before. Behind them lay the sea that once defined them. Ahead of them walked the one who commanded it. And from that day on, fishermen became messengers, and ordinary men stepped into a story far greater than their own.